Welcome back to another episode of The Fuzzy Pod. I'm Megan.
I'm Maddie.
And today we are going to be talking about the movies that shaped us. Yes.
Imagination.
So many movies that we were talking about maybe made us self-conscious about our bodies because it
made us feel shame.
Because it was Y2K era. And there was a lot of things around women's bodies then.
We're just not going to talk about that part.
Today we're specifically focusing on two of the movies that shaped us.
It's a double feature.
It's a double feature, baby. And the movies we're focusing on today are Sleepover and Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging.
Say that 3 times fast.
Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging. Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging. Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging. And did we rewatch these movies? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we did.
Because we are very, we're hard workers. We want to make sure that
we're going to spend an hour and a half watching a movie for you.
We're giving you as much realness as we can. And we do our research. If there's one thing about this podcast is that we are excellent researchers.
Yes, that's why you're here. Because you're here for the facts. The facts about Sleepover.
The hard truth.
2004 movie with Alexa Vega and Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging with, Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Aaron Taylor Johnson. How
Not
dare
me about
you?
to say what's his face.
Not how dare you.
Literally, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson in that movie was like confirmation that, like, yeah, I like men. I like boys.
The way...
Anyways,
chills, goosebumps.
We'll get to that in a second, though. Because first, Madison, we need to talk about fuzzy thoughts of the week. We need to clear our minds before we get into all of this Y2K movie nostalgia.
I just feel like my mind is so packed with randomness.
Okay.
But nothing relevant.
Okay. Well, that's what Fuzzy Thoughts is for, so get them out.
To be honest, what I've been thinking about most the past, 2 days is how on earth can one person sweat so much? And I really don't have answers, except for I do, because you know me. I like answers to my questions.
I thought I was the super sweaty one. Remember the whole conversation between aluminum, no aluminum, organic deodorant?
Well, that was before I lived in Tennessee. And now that I'm here... This weather, it's unprecedented.
It has been raining basically every single day since Maddie has arrived here.
Yes. It's it'll be like a pretty day and it's hot, but whatever, we can manage. And then all of a sudden, clouds come rushing in, rain pouring, the most intense thunderstorms I've ever experienced.
Lightning.
It's been quite a journey, and Megan has repeatedly said, I did not trick you. I don't know what's going on. I've never seen weather like this before.
I'm telling you, we do get thunderstorms, but not back to back to back to back.
It has been insane. But what I learned is I was like, okay, I am just not made for the heat, but also sweat everywhere. All the pores are sweating. And apparently you sweat more when it's humid.
Yeah.
Because the sweat can't evaporate.
Yeah.
And it can't cool you.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? What's the solution? Because the way that sweat works is it's hot, you sweat, it evaporates to cool you off.
Yeah.
And now I'm just thinking we're going to have to resort to living the life of a pig and mud baths.
No.
To cool off.
Let me tell you something, though, because the whole reason that pigs, side note, I think do the mud bath is because they can't sweat.
They can't sweat, yeah.
But here's the thing, to make you feel better. I was recently in Joshua Tree, and it was peak summer, the off season there. It was so hot.
So hot, yeah.
It was so hot that,
I bet.
Honestly, you're outside and your sweat dries so fast that you don't even realize how hot you are. And you
dehydration.
You should be drinking. Literally, it was you should be drinking a gallon of water every so often
hour.
that you're outside. Literally, though, we were reading because you're not. What I'm trying to say is maybe it's okay that you're sweating, and that you're not gonna die of dehydration because you have plenty of hydration happening around you in the air.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm glad
I
you
would
could get that
rather
out.
not like have my feet and everything sweating. Like, can I just?
You get used to it. It's fine.
Do I?
You
Will
get used
I?
to it. It's fine. Your body will acclimate.
Will I?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Look at me. Do I look sweaty right now? Don't answer that.
You look dewy.
Glowy is the word I prefer.
I'm sorry. This one is also starting to
Oh my gosh,
fall,
no.
and I'm like, no!
So last week on the pod, we talked about how we were going to get new mic stands before the next episode, and it's been a busy week, so
You know,
we
life
didn't get
happens.
around to it yet. So if you see us just adjusting our mic stands every few seconds, so sorry. Literally going to go buy some today, no matter what. That's going to be like number one priority after this. Because, oh my gosh, now Madison's mic stand is falling and breaking apart.
Pray for us.
Let's hope we make it through this episode. My fuzzy thought for the week.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm here too. Hi.
I didn't forget that you were here, but I
No.
forgot that you didn't give your fuzzy thought.
My fuzzy thought for the week is I just wrote down, why am I so tired all the time?
That is the most relatable thing you've ever said.
And it's just been like this
Take a sip of
last
coffee.
month. I don't know what's going on. I have just been so tired. I feel like I'm playing catch up constantly. And I also
Amen.
feel like at the same time, I have no space to say anything because I have friends in my life who are so busy and also have children. So I'm like, I feel like I can't be over here being like, I am tired, you know? But it's been a lot of go, especially like getting you settled. And I don't even know how you're doing it because you're doing more than me when it comes to like moving into your house. I'm just assisting here and there.
Well, special shout out to Megan and Cooper though, because they did come and unpack our entire kitchen for the most part. I think there's still like a couple missing boxes.
Yeah, we tried to find it.
But that's not on you guys. Which was a tremendous help. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know how people who have children do it, except for in my mind,
Superheroes.
they just have like all this adrenaline because they have to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, you're like, I have to keep this creature alive. I have to keep my child.
Yeah.
I have to take care of them.
Like
And
it's
myself,
one thing
it's a
having a
lot.
dog, but like they like sleep a lot. Like they can be on their own. Like you can leave them,
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, dogs, yeah. Not
But
children.
like yeah, that's what I said. It's different having a
Dog children,
dog.
yeah.
Like it's like
Because I would like to make it clear they are my children. Our dogs
no,
are
they
my children.
100%. Loki is my child. I carry him around like he's a baby. Like he is my child.
He's in the room right now. He's chewing on a toy that's very loud.
I hope that you guys can't hear that. But
Should we
he's very happy.
Should we switch your toy? You look very happy though.
So people who have kids, I just feel like they have like next level energy because they have to.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. What we're trying to say is all the moms and the dads out there, you're doing great and you're awesome.
And you're amazing.
Truly.
You're doing
Because here
great.
I am. And
Exhausted.
exhausted. And what am I doing?
I don't know, man. I feel it too. I feel like I'm always tired.
It's the
It doesn't-
rain. It's also raining every single day.
that doesn't help, but also that's not an excuse for me. I just always am tired.
No. It's your body. It's like creating melatonin because we wake up and it's dark still. And you're like, hello?
Yes, honestly, that's what happened yesterday. I lost all motivation. It was like bright and sunny,
Mhm.
and then we went to Target, and within like the 20 minutes that we were in and out of Target, the clouds rolled in. It was pitch like I swear it's pitch black.
Yeah.
out.
It was like
the sky
blue,
was
beautiful
gray.
skies. Went into Target, came out, and it was like, hello? How long
Hello?
were we in
Who
there?
turned the lights off?
I know that sometimes you wander around Target for a while and you like lose track of time, but like how
But how long were we
How long
gone?
were we gone in there? And one final life update, we officially started our book club we talked about.
Yay.
It's no longer just an idea. Well, it currently is.
It currently still is just an idea.
As long as we start reading our books tonight, it
Yeah.
will no longer be an idea.
Exactly, which we will.
We will.
Because now we said it on the podcast, and so that means we have to do
We
it.
have to do
it's
it.
called accountability.
And what's our first book we're reading, you ask? It is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This has been on my list for a while and also on my shelf for a long while. It's
It
just been
happens.
sitting there. And we
It
were
happens.
going through like some of the similar books we had that we wanted to read on our wish list. And that was one of them. And they just came out with a movie, I believe.
Yes.
So we have to read the book.
We were like, we need to read the book so then we can watch the movie because we love movies. Obviously, we're dedicating a whole episode on it.
A whole episode of the movies that shaped us. But if you want to read along with us, I'm sure we'll be discussing it on the pod. I love how I feel like all of our book choices are like steamy romance novels.
Oh, they're all going to be romance novels, let's just be honest.
It's going to be a mix, though, because we were trying to sprinkle some self-help in there,
We want to do some self-help, some like
some motivating books.
What do you call it? Like memoirs.
Yes.
We love those. I don't know.
We'll have a
We'll
sprinkle
see.
of
We'll
things.
see.
Right
We'll
now,
try.
I think it's something with like coming out of summer and things like that. I just wanted like a good, like lighthearted, fun romance, which
Yeah.
maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's not.
Maybe we know nothing about this movie.
Maybe
This book, and it's actually tragic.
Watch it be devastating.
I can't handle.
Oh my gosh. I don't think it is. Oh gosh. TBD.
No one tell us.
No one say anything, okay?
No one say anything if it's tragic.
we're gonna find out ourselves soon.
There's no shot. It's gonna be happy.
Right? It's a love story, right?
Yeah. It's
I
gonna be
actually
cute.
don't know a ton about it.
Neither do I. I know it's like an American boy meets like a British boy, like a royal,
And then they fall in
and
love.
they fall in love, and we'll
That's
see what
all we-
happens. Hopefully, no one tragically
Please.
dies.
No,
Oh
it's
my
going to be
gosh.
lighthearted and amazing. I'm excited. All right, it is time for us to dive into the movies that shaped us.
Grab your popcorn.
We had a double feature party. We watched Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging and Sleepover, and we're going to be discussing both of those movies today. The similarities they have, some of the things,
differences.
the differences, some of the things that I didn't remember, as a child.
I was surprised by how much you didn't remember of those movies. I
Honestly-
felt like there was multiple times where you're like, oh, like, is this gonna happen? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I must have watched these a million times or something, because I remember every second of every scene.
It's so funny too, because even though I don't remember like some of like the details, like they both were still like really pivotal, and there's like certain scenes that still really stick with me.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm glad that we rewatched them because I was able to gather all my thoughts on both of these movies. So
So good.
I think we're going to kick things off with Sleepover. Sleepover follows 14-year-old Julie Corky, which,
She's just a quirky girl.
what a name. Corky is quirky. Honestly, the names in this movie. And her best friends on their first night of summer break. It's the summer between 8th grade and high school. And who they're going to be in high school hangs on this night. Apparently, like, this night is going to define who they are for the rest of high school. So,
Which that means for the rest of their lives.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's what they said,
Yeah.
though. In the movie, they were literally like, who you are in high school, like, determines who you are for the rest of your life. Which,
like,
watching
It ain't that deep. It ain't that deep.
Literally watching it as an adult, I'm like, what are you talking about?
But also that was the perspective.
That's
growing
what
up.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like in that moment and in that like that age that they are in the movie, it's like, oh no, yeah, you're like, high school is forever. High school is like so important, and it's just such a blip in your life. It's
Yeah.
like there's lots of thoughts on that. But on this, first night of summer, a competition between two groups having sleepover ensues after Julie's ex BFF Stacy,
Ooh.
who decided to go to Liz's party instead of Julie's, by the way.
She would.
They decided to wager for a coveted lunch spot at their new high school, the Fountains. So apparently at this high school
sit
that
at
they
the
were
fountain.
going to, if you sit by the fountains, it's like you are cool.
You are
And if
that
you sit
girl.
anywhere else, what are you doing with
Then
your
you
life?
are that loser.
The two groups set out on a scavenger hunt, which includes catfishing adult men, meeting them at a club and getting them to buy them a drink, putting their clothes on mannequins at the mall, and stealing boxers from one of the most popular high school boys, Steve, who Julie, our main character, is obsessed with. When Julie's asked by her BFF Hannah, who's moving to Canada, by the way, because they mention that a lot, and they kind of act like Hannah's like dying and she'll never be
I
able to
know.
communicate with her again.
Or that she's also not going to high school because she's like, what did she say? She is like, you're not going to get the high school experience. Something like that. And I was like, is she not
She's just going to
She is-
Vancouver.
dropping out and never going to go to school again? Like,
So her best friend, Hannah, asks Julie what she wants most in this world. And what's Julie's answer?
just think about that for a second. What does she want most in this world? Out of everything.
Everything. Is there like a certain career that she wants? Maybe a certain amount of success?
Maybe she wants to travel,
travel.
see things, grow as an individual. But
She's,
no, what does she want, Megan?
She says, Steve. Steve is what she wants most. The boy in high school that she's
The boy in high school.
hardly talked to, seemingly.
It seems like they don't know each other. From what we gathered, they rode the bus together in elementary school.
And that was it.
And that was the interaction.
But,
so,
what she wants most of this world is Steve. So then shenanigans ensue while Julie's older brother, back from college, covers for them while they've snuck out to compete in this scavenger hunt. And it all
So
comes
funny.
down, Maddie, to a tiebreaker. And they decide that the tiebreaker will be who will get the homecoming crown. Now, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, this movie takes place on the first night of summer in between the summer of 8th grade and 9th grade, meaning they're not in high school yet officially. So this dance, not really for them. So they have to like sneak in or like get people to get them into the party, by the way. Julie, during the night of the scavenger hunt, was actually seen by Steve while she was, doing some cool skateboard tricks.
Oh,
She was in a race to get back home because her mom was going to call and check on them, and they snuck out that night. So she's on a skateboard, and Steve is at a red light or like a stop sign or something and sees Julie on her skateboard in a red dress, which honestly, iconic scene, which we can talk about more in a second. She's like skateboarding, and Steve goes, "Whoa. Who's that girl?" He's like, "Oh my gosh." And then just becomes like obsessed with her over the course of the night. So much so that when all the girls end up at this high school dance trying to get the homecoming crown to be crowned the victors of the coveted fountain spot at the high school, like who's going to get it? Steve, we already established, is really popular. So of course he wins homecoming king.
Of course.
And when he's on stage, he grabs the microphone, and what does he say on stage? He says, Julie Corky. Our main character's name. He's calling for her. Oh my
Am
gosh.
I right?
And she goes, Is this real? Is this really
She's just
happening?
standing there, and she's like,
He said my name?
What?
Yeah, he did, because he saw you skateboarding, and I guess
I guess that's how you win a man's heart.
Yeah, you're now the love of his life. So he asks her to dance, of course, and what does he do? He puts the crown on her head. There was a small detail in there of where he finds their scavenger hunt list.
Yeah, so he knows what needs to be done for her to win.
And so he secures her spot at the fountains, and also I guess they're dating now.
Also, I guess they're in love and getting married.
And we just accept that.
They're children.
So that is basically the entire premise of Sleepover. For me, I think I'll kind of break down what some of like the pivotal moments were for me and why it was such an impactful movie back in 2004.
Absolutely.
So our main character, Julie, is played by Alexa Pena Vega, and she was like just coming out. I think like the last big movie before this was like Spy Kids.
Yeah, she was in Spy Kids.
It was giving like, I'm no longer a spy
I'm
kid.
not just Spy Kid.
I'm a spy tween. It was like
I'm
very
an
much
adult now.
Yeah, it felt like it was like this is her first like role as like I'm grown up now, and I'm not just like a little kid anymore.
Yeah.
And that was honestly kind of like a theme throughout the movie, because that's kind of a theme in that time of your life.
Like, yeah, I feel like between the ages of like 13, 14, going into 15, 16, like you're really like, oh, I'm an adult now. Like,
Yeah.
I know.
I'm driving now. Maybe I'm dating now.
Exactly.
And maybe I'm no longer wearing regular panties but thongs, because that seems to be
a big theme of these movies.
a huge
Which,
theme.
honestly, fair. Like, I remember being that age and being like, oh my gosh, thongs.
Thongs.
Not the thongs. Thongs.
It's so grown up.
Literally just underwear.
Yeah,
but-
literally like way overthinking it.
But you go to the mall and you're like, picking out your new underwear, and you like see the thongs and you're like, I couldn't dare.
Couldn't dare.
I think what's iconic about this movie as well is, if you haven't seen it, honestly, I'm not going to suggest it, but it's pretty funny to watch because there's so many actors in it that you would not expect.
This movie apparently launched careers. Are you ready for this? Steve Carell. Okay.
What?
Steve Carell plays the...
It's giving Paul Blart Mall Cop, but
Yes.
he's like a security guard.
Yes, he plays a security guard who's like trying to like stop the girls' shenanigans throughout the night. Brie Larson.
Brie Larson's in it, yeah.
Brie Larson plays Liz, who is kind of like our antagonist. She's hosting the other sleepover happening that night, the one that Stacy, the ex-BFF, decides to go to. But that was crazy seeing her.
Evan Peters is also in it.
Crazy.
Which, what?
What?
What were all these people doing
Evan Peters
in 2004?
He plays a character. I think his character's name
Literally
is SpongeBob.
called SpongeBob. They call him SpongeBob.
Is that legally allowed? Literally,
he's like the dorky, like I don't know, like
he's the dorky like skateboard dude who was in a coma for 3 hours, and that's
his whole personality.
Give him. That's his character's entire thing.
personality.
And plot twist, he ends up with Stacy at the end of it.
Yeah.
At least for a brief moment. I don't know if they stay together once high school starts.
Spoilers, Megan. Just kidding.
Jane Lynch plays the mom in this movie.
I know, iconic. And she is an icon in this movie. She's out there hitting the clubs. She's like trying to come up with themes for her daughter Julie's like sleepover.
Ladybug theme.
I mean, iconic.
I want to go to a Ladybug themed party. I love a theme.
I want to go to the club with Jane Lynch.
So many just like huge actors in this movie. It was like, honestly, as we were watching it, I was like, I'm sorry? These people are in
like,
this movie?
What?
I forgot.
How?
We can't forget Sarah Paxton, who was also in a movie that shaped us, which is Aquamarine.
Oh,
She plays Stacy.
yeah.
You know we have to talk about Aquamarine on the pod at some point.
Oh, it's going to come up. It's going to come up. But yes, she was also in that movie, which just iconic. Iconic.
Another thing that I just want to briefly touch on, which was very early 2000s, unfortunately, was the body shaming that was happening in the movie. There is a character named Yancey who gets...
Also, why did they name her Yancey? We need to talk about that.
I'm not going to lie. I literally made a note. They end up bullying Yancey for... I almost said Nancy. They end up bullying Yancey because of her body type.
Yes.
And really, I wrote down...
They should have been bullying her about her name. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Honestly, that's a fair thing. But they should bully her parents because her parents named her Yancey.
No, I literally wrote that down. I was like, they should have bullied Yancey for her name.
Like, that's the real issue here.
Anyways.
But yes, it was very unfortunate, like, watching a movie. But at the end of the day, too, like, that is, like, I think the reason they had it in there is because that is, like, an experience that I think, like, young girls have. Or any age.
Yeah. My gosh, really, any age. Well, that's actually going to come back around, too, that there was another tie-in with both of our movies that we watched.
Oh, yes.
That we'll get to in a second. That kind of has to do with images and how we see ourselves, especially in that time of transition between, like, being a kid and, like, a young adult.
Being a teen,
Being a teen, yeah. Oh, my gosh. They really captured all the feelings in these movies, I gotta say, of, like, what that time period was like.
Oh, truly. I feel like watching these movies back, like, one, it's like, aw, like, so sweet, like, the friendships that we had, like, people that were, like, obviously we still have, like, our friends from high school and, like, junior high, like, that era of our lives, but, like, being that age and having, like, your group of, like, girlfriends and, like, all the, like, shenanigans, like, that you would get up to, or, like, just seeing the way that they talk to each other and interact, and you're like, that is what we sounded like.
Oh, no, like, almost exactly. And a part of me wonders, too, is, like, do we act like that because this is just, like, a really accurate depiction of that time of our lives?
Or was it
influenced by the movies that we were watching? And I think maybe it was kind of like a mix of the two. All right, I'm going to go through just kind of some stream of consciousness thoughts I wrote out as we were watching Sleepover. First of all, they stole a car in a way.
Yeah, they did steal Yancey's parents' car.
Yes, and they don't have license.
They're
to
14. So just let that sink in.
So they're driving around in a car that they...
At the age of 14.
At the age of 14, that they're not legally allowed to drive. They sneak into a club.
They
catfish a guy that ends up being their teacher from 8th grade.
So that's cute.
And the whole, like, premise was, like, they had to get, like, the guy to, like, buy them a drink. And Julie Corky goes up to the bar to like order a drink, and she's never ordered a drink. She's 14 in the club. And she goes, I would like a chunky monkey. And they go, that's a smoothie. And so then her friend's texting her, and her friend texts her, and she gets a pop-up comes on her phone, and it says sex on the beach. And I remember seeing that and being like, they said the word sex. And it was like, what is that? And it was like, oh, it's a drink. And she's like, oh, I'll take a sex on the beach. And I was just like so funny because I was like, oh my gosh, I would never sneak out to a club and try to grab a drink at 14. Insert picture of me at 14.
Oh my gosh.
So I think it was like all these like high stakes compared to like the kind of like, sleepovers and truth and dares that I was experiencing that age. It was kind of like, whoa, this is cool, like and edgy, and look at them. Like maybe one day it'll be like this. I don't know. And the boy will be on stage and call out your name.
Maybe he'll call out my name. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it like made this big like I don't know, like fantasy of like sneaking out and like being rebellious, but it's like I would never
do that. But maybe
I could see me doing that maybe if I felt edgy.
The other thing I wrote down was, why was he hanging out with an 8th grader? And I was referring to, in the beginning, we see the ex-BFF Stacy hanging out with her high school boyfriend.
Yeah, and I was like, for some reason she has this high school boyfriend who is, we can only assume, of legal driving age because he drives a convertible.
Yeah.
And like, she's a literal child, and you're in high school and probably like
17,
a junior.
Yeah,
I'm gathering, and that seems a little odd to me. And how long have you been together? And how did you meet this child?
And literally, he was like, "You said after you graduated we'd hook up," and I was like,
"Ew." Literally disgusting.
Well, so he ends up dumping Stacy, by the way, but then she ends up like just giving him like, she has this line that's like just a big diss to him about, he's like, well, you'll never be dating like the football of the.
He's like, don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
You're going to be nothing without me.
And she was like, oh yeah, Mr. like second string quarterback of the junior varsity team.
And you're like, ooh, she got you
there. So, okay, the other thing I wrote down was whiteout nails. I forgot about this, and this movie just brought it back. In the early 2000s, it was like such a thing to like paint your nails white. And I don't know if there were just like wasn't a ton of white nail polish on the market, but we would use whiteout. Like, you use on paper.
Do people use whiteout anymore?
Do people, I don't know. Do people type out things? When's the last time you used whiteout?
That's what I'm saying. On my toenails.
On my toenails. But they would like peel within a day.
Oh, it was horrendous.
But I just love that movie brought that back to the forefront of my brain.
I feel like it was just like you felt edgy doing it. You were like, oh my gosh, I'm using whiteout. And it's like, for why though?
Yeah.
Like, for why?
Sniffing it in between. I'm just joking.
Was not my experience.
Okay.
What else did you sniff, Megan?
What else did you sniff in
Sharpies? Are you one of those people who likes the smell of gasoline?
Who doesn't? Like a little bit. If you don't, you're lying.
There it is.
I'm not out there going. Also, I drive mostly electric now, so I don't really fill my car. I don't go to get, the gas station.
That wasn't the question.
No, but I'm saying like it's not unpleasant.
That's not the question.
Am
Megan.
I huffing it? No. Is it unpleasant when you're around that smell? No.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on. This is a very important one. Is she rich? Because she has a huge bedroom, which by the way was iconic. It was like lime green and pinks and purple.
No, it was fuzzy pod colors, I'm realizing.
Oh my gosh,
it was
you're
lavender
so right.
and lime green.
Oh my gosh, that movie had influence on our future fuzzy podcast.
My gosh,
we had
no idea. The subconscious, the powerful effects of cinema. Of peak cinema.
But her room was so iconic, and honestly, I think had influence on a room that I had would have been a couple years later in my life. But it was like I ended up painting my room lime green.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Julie Corky's room had some influence on there. And I think yes.
Probably did. Also, what was interesting about the room situation is how throughout the whole movie she's like, I need a lock on my door. Like how that's like a big theme for her.
Oh, that's kind of a theme. Like also like we're not talking about this movie today, but I just thought of it like Freaky Friday.
Yes.
She wants her privacy with her door.
Yes.
Like that's like a common theme in this like era of like 8th grade to 9th grade. Like, yeah, being a teen. That's so funny.
I need my privacy.
Yeah, I need my privacy to write in my diary. I'm going through changes. Leave me alone. You can't just barge in here anymore. But I also wrote down Is She Rich because they have like a neighborhood with patrol. And that's how we are introduced to Steve Carell's character.
Yeah.
Because he's like patrolling
He's the new patrol officer on duty.
Which his intro scene, by the way, is so funny.
It's so good.
He like knocks on the door. He's like,
honestly,
hey.
Just look it up.
Yeah.
Just look up Steve Carell in Sleepover.
Watch all his scenes.
Just like watch his scenes. I'm sure there's a compilation on YouTube. Like
there's a compilation of everything.
It's so good.
And then the last thought I had, the skateboard scene in the red dress was just iconic. So, for their night out, Julie ends up wearing this red dress. But of course, it starts off as a red dress with, some big sleeves on it and some other, details that they end up just ripping off and making this like cute little like
montage.
There's always a montage, right? Of like getting ready for the night. And in part of, their montage for getting ready for the night, they transform this dress into like this red halter. Like sparkly. It's giving the emoji girl.
It is, yeah.
When she's like seen skateboarding in that dress, I was like, whoa, I want to be that girl.
That's cool.
I want to be that girl. And apparently Steve thought it was cool too. Yeah. So.
I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure that's why I wanted to skateboard when I was younger. Yeah. I was like, I could be her. I can skateboard like the Spy Kids girl. We also cannot skip over like the Spice Girls dancing to Wannabe and the singing with the fun outfits, and
they checked all the classic sleepover boxes. Dancing to, like you said, the Spice Girl songs. Tell me what you want. To freezing bras and like, why was that a thing? We would always do that. Like, if it was a group of girls, it was like the first one to fall asleep.
You have to freeze their bra.
Their bra is gonna be frozen, which kind of mean.
It's kind of mean, but it also is fun.
Yeah. It's funny.
Like
harmless fun. So I think that about sums it up for Sleepover. And we'll come back around to it in a second when we tie in the themes with Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging. But Madison, would you like to tell everyone about our experience with Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging and what that movie's about?
Wee oh wee, do I ever. The way this movie like defined me. The year's 2008.
Was it 2008 when that movie came out?
Yeah, Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging was 2008. Sleepover was 2004.
So I was around her age. Like, oh my gosh, like that character was actually like my age at that time.
So in this coming of age movie, we meet Georgia Nicholson, who is a 14, about to be 15-year-old girl. And we follow her story of wanting the perfect birthday party and the perfect, as they call it, sex god boyfriend. Throughout the movie, we see her go through embarrassing moments as she attempts to woo her crush, Robbie. And also, she's struggling with the dynamics of her parents. But overall, it's just her realizing that she's been acting selfish, but she can grow.
Yeah.
So this movie, if you haven't seen it, actually, I do recommend that one.
It's a sweet movie.
It's actually a really good movie, and I feel like it does a really good job of capturing not only like what it felt like to be that age and going through like that, again, the same like time period.
Same time period, like 8th grade to 9th grade. Transitioning from like I'm like a little like tween into a real teen. And like becoming a young adult woman and what that's like. But I feel like this one really like...
This one does it really well.
Yes.
Because I think it like... There actually is character development. Like there actually is a human.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like with Sleepover, it's like,
who is Julie Quirky?
Yeah.
She loves Steve. And
and that's her whole personality. Whereas like with this one, Georgia is like really figuring out who she is, and like, yes, she's like obsessed with this one boy. These two brothers move into town. They're twins, ? But one's way taller and they look completely different.
The only thing similar about them is that they were both very attractive and
They're
everyone
both
was
very
obsessed with
attractive
them when
men.
they moved there. And
So
that's
our boy teams? I don't know. But yeah, so it follows the story of these four friends, and Georgia's kind of our main character as they are obsessed with these boys that moved into town, and how are we going to get them to be our boyfriends, because that's all that we need in life is to have boyfriends to be adults. And it's super cute, and I think I really loved it too because it's just like fun, and like it's also they're British, and so
The terminology
I think,
used.
the funny terminology throughout the film that we're going to like talk about is also super fun. I think when I was like young, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're just like me.
I was going to say they're so grown up.
Oh my
Talking
gosh.
about sex gods.
Absolute sex gods.
I would like to talk about some of the funny words that they use to describe boobs in this movie, because boobs are talked about a lot, because that is like the time in your life when you're like, things are changing. You're maybe getting a bra for the first time, or maybe some of you have already been wearing a bra for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was kind of like actually showing her and her friend group, like they were like at different stages of that too, which I thought was kind of fun. And that being said, there are some funny words that they use to explain boobs.
Yeah. Like in the very beginning, like one of the characters, her name is, they call her Slaggy Lindsay.
Slaggy Lindsay.
And she's like a year above them. And they're like, where did she get those like bazoongas?
Yeah, bazoomers is what I wrote down.
Because I guess over the summer she developed.
Got some bazoomers.
Got some bazoomers.
They only like her because of her bazoomers, please. They also did a pencil test, which
oh my gosh.
I feel like I remember doing that as
100%.
well.
100%.
And the pencil test is where they like
you
would
take a pencil and you see if your
boobs can hold it up. Your
bazoomers can hold it up. But like if you like press.
Dude, that was like sending me. Oh.
And then Georgia goes, my mom can fit a whole pencil box.
A whole pencil box, please.
I'm crying.
And then the one friend that like couldn't even get the pencil to stay at all was like, "Eat me, hi." Literally me at that age, though. The other word for boobs also like sent me when she went on a date. Georgia went on a date with this friend to make Robbie jealous, which was also not great of her to do because she was using this guy.
Which she recognizes there's character development.
Yes, there is, like Madison said. He referred to the bazoomers as Nungas, because he says when you hold one,
when you get a hold of one
with consent,
and you let it go,
Nunga, Nungas.
Nunga, spell it, Megan.
Nuga. And did I put captions on for that one? Because I said
we had to
what is
clarify
he saying?
What he's saying. Kind of felt bad for that guy because we're like, oh, she's using him. But also when she asked him, what's the first thing that you notice in a girl? That's what he replied.
Yeah. He was like, hey, I'll be honest with you. It's not the eyes.
He said most boys would say eyes, but I see nungas.
I can't. Can we also talk about the fact that at one of the sleepovers that these main four friends have, they decide to go around and anonymously rank the attractiveness level.
Oh my gosh, they have categories. It goes like eyes, like
nose, mouth,
hair, yeah,
style.
personality.
I could not imagine.
Could you
doing something
imagine?
Like that. Were people actually doing this? Is that where they got the inspiration from, or was this just like a movieism?
I'm hoping that it's just like a movie thing, but I'm like, how horrible. And then our main character, she's already insecure about her nose, and her friends rate her nose a 4 out of 10. How tragic.
So rude.
I know, so rude. Also, it's like, she can't do anything about her nose.
Can we talk about the soundtrack for a second, though? Because the soundtrack is fire.
It actually is fire. That's what I'm saying. I actually recommend this movie.
I forgot, too, like, as we were watching the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that all these songs became my personality the year this movie came out.
So good.
Like, these were all on my playlist.
The songs are so good. They're such a vibe.
And there is, like, the song that our main character, Robbie, writes.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Robbie writes for our main character, Georgia, and it's called Ultraviolet. The way Maddie and I turn to 14-year-old girls again.
Chills.
I was like, why am I getting chills right now watching this? Why do I feel emotional?
Why am I crying?
Your love is ultraviolet. We were just dancing on the couch, watching this movie. And we were like,
So
oh my
good.
gosh, I'm 14 again. And these
And
feelings.
Robbie cares about me.
And Robbie loves me.
I'm crying.
This movie, though, perfectly encapsulated all the feelings of going through a crush. Specifically, some of the things I wrote down was the way they would talk about small
The
things.
small interactions.
The smallest interactions they'd have with the guys. And that's so accurate.
It's so accurate. In the beginning, so it's Georgia and her best friend Jazz are going after the two brothers. And they go to their, the store that their family owns. And they're, talking to them. And they leave. And they're like, okay, see you later. And the entire walk back to their houses, they talk about what that means, that they said, see you later. Was it casual? Or did they mean they would actually see them later?
Oh, and you better believe that around that time in our lives, we would totally
hyperanalyze.
Oh my gosh, completely overanalyze literally every single little reaction, and I love that they feature that in this movie.
Does he love me though? Does that mean he loves
see you
me?
later? Did he? When he said that, he
Was
really
he
meant
really trying to say you're the love of my life?
Yeah.
I mean, if you break it down.
Were there things that watching it as an adult that stuck out to you and maybe rubbed you the wrong way now compared to when you were a kid you didn't even think about?
I think what was interesting, watching it now, and I kind of touched on this earlier, was just seeing which you're a kid, but seeing how the selfish behaviors, but also how part of growing up is recognizing oh, life is not just about me and what I want.
Yeah.
And my actions affect other people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was your question, but
well, no, yeah, it was just what things did you as an adult notice that you didn't as a kid? One thing I noticed was there's this guy named Peter that Georgia goes to for kissing lessons. He's the
iconic
kissing guru at the
Yeah.
school, and his character is actually kind of hilarious when we first meet him. He's got this breath spray. He's got his little timer. He's I mean business.
He's doing his
oh yeah,
curls.
He's got
a little 5-pound weight.
He's doing bicep curls whenever she comes to the door. He's got the swoopy hair, and
The swoop was swooping.
He ends up teaching Georgia how to snog.
But she's a natural.
And so he falls for her. And he's like, oh my gosh, you're my best student yet. And I'm
in love
with you, Georgia. And they end up at the same party. And Peter just kind of pushes himself on Angus. And then they literally
Her name's not Angus. Angus is a cat.
Angus is the cat in the movie. Georgia.
Not her calling her Angus.
Not Peter pushing himself on her cat. That's a whole different movie.
That's a film we definitely shouldn't watch.
Peter ends up pushing himself on Georgia at this party that they're both at. And literally to a point where they fall into the bushes because he's trying to kiss her. And she's like, no. And they fall in the bushes. And then at that moment, Robbie and his brother and Slaggy Lindsay and one of George's best friends who's now dating the other brother, Tom.
Jazz, yeah.
Jazz and Tom all show up at the party when this happens. And they all kind of refer to her as a slag for being down in the bushes and her dress came up. And it's Peter pushed himself on her.
No one's talking about it.
Hello? She solves a problem here.
Let's quickly talk about how Robbie was a little bit of a two-timer. So we're well into our story at this point, and clearly Robbie and Georgia have some level of feelings for each other, but Robbie's with Lindsay, so we don't know what's going on there. Robbie, Tom, and Georgia's best friend, Jazz, all go to a community pool together, but Lindsay can't be bothered to go because her hair would get ruined. And so it's the perfect opportunity for Georgia to go get in some time hanging out with Robbie. So she goes, And that whole scene is just like iconic.
It truly is.
It deals with beauty standards because she tries to self-tan her legs and they end up just being Cheeto orange. And when she meets up with them, we just see like the interaction of her like trying to like hide and be like, oh, I don't want him to see my crazy legs, but like I still want to like hang out and flirt. And he's like, should we get in? Like, should we jump into the pool? Does the most iconic dive.
The way
this man jumps into the pool and it's like 3 feet deep. And it's like, you should not be diving into this. Anyways, she should have gotten the ick based on that. But anyway, so they get in the pool, they're joking, they're flirting, and he ends up kissing her. And after they kiss, he's like, I have to sort some things out and like, I'll call you later. And then just like disappears. She doesn't hear from him for like a week. He is still
brutal.
with Lindsay. And what? So, anyways, I feel like that is one thing you asked me like earlier, like if something like rubbed me the wrong way. And honestly, I forgot about that. I forgot that he was like still with his girlfriend.
Yes.
And kissed her.
Yes, because I was just so probably wrapped up in that moment of like, oh my gosh, like this is the most romantic thing ever.
Yeah.
Could you imagine like hanging out with the most perfect boy you have a crush on and then he kisses you in the pool?
Yes. Also, that scene reminded me of how fugly I felt in pool.
That's so funny.
I'm like, that's not my dream when I was that age. Like, just like, your hair is not cute. Like, no, most people don't look cute when they're swimming.
You're like spitting out like water out of your mouth. Everybody's like,
your hair is just like doing weird things. Like,
they made it seem like it was possible though.
yeah. And
Even
so
with
I
Cheeto
feel like
legs.
watching that scene as a kid, I was like, anything is possible.
Crying.
Oh my gosh. So there was that. And then just another side note, this is totally random. But after that is whenever she goes to one of his so he has a band.
Yes.
One of his band's like gigs. And that's when she takes the best friend we were talking about that she uses. And the way that scene, like he's playing in the band, but he's watching her the whole time, like having the time of her life with his best mate. And he's like, so jealous, right?
Yes.
And the way that perfectly captured how I felt going to concerts thinking that the boy that I thought was cute on stage was looking at me and me just not paying any attention. I'm just having the time of my life. Like, oh my God, he's going to notice me and be like, oh my God, who is she? She's so,
Oh my gosh.
look at her. I bet she can ride a skateboard in a red sparkle dress.
I'm crying.
That's how it made me feel.
Oh my gosh.
But with that, I feel like those are my final thoughts on that movie. I mean, I could go on.
We could go on and
but-
on and on. I was very surprised by the fact that there were a lot of themes that kind of crossed over in both of these films.
Yes, there really were.
The first being that both of these movies were about a transition point in a lot of these like young girls' life. And specifically like 8th grade to 9th grade and just like what a pivotal time that is. And during that time, like we talked about, transition to thongs. Literally, it's in the title of our second feature, Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging. Girls are like freaking out about the people that are already wearing thongs at their age.
Yeah, it's
And,
like, oh, am I grown up enough? Like,
Like, oh my gosh, is that slaggy?
I don't want to be slaggy Lindsay.
Like, is that joke? They're calling her like slutty. They're slut shaming Lindsay. But Lindsay's mean.
Lindsay was very mean.
Lindsay
I'm not
was mean.
saying that they should be using that, but
She was mean.
I also don't fully know if we should be saying that because it means nothing to me.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a PG movie.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't say it if it was like literally a PG movie. So I don't think that word is terrible.
Oh,
We can
I'm
always
crying.
we can bleep it out later or let us know.
Or let us know. Another big theme in these movies is just the focus on boys. Like, the
Crazy.
drives everything that they do. Every decision that they
Yes.
make is about the boy that they like. And just, I don't know, just how crazy we could get over boys at that age.
Or anyone that you had a crush on.
Anyone that you had a
Jeez.
crush on, like, that was your whole, like, goal in life.
Identity and world.
Yeah.
But I think that Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging did a better job at, like, exploring what that, your main character could be, like, who you could be
Without the
outside of the boy.
Yeah.
And
they
she
did a
had
good job
a
with
lot of
that.
personal growth in the period that she wasn't with
Yes.
Robbie. And I was like, oh, that's cool to, like, show.
Yeah, and she also accepted because at one point in the movie, he was like they were both kind of like, I don't know, this isn't gonna happen. And she was like, okay. Like, she moved on. She was like, I'm gonna better myself. And so I feel like that was cool because it was like showing the message of like, yeah, maybe it didn't work out with the boy, but I can still be a better me.
Yeah. And then after she bettered herself, they ended up coming back together in the end anyways. So
Which is what we all wanted anyways.
yeah.
So,
she had some she had some personal growth and got the boy, okay? So she got it all. This next theme wasn't like a main point of each movie, but there was a lot of crossover in how each of our main characters were worried about their parents' relationship and also having these realizations that, oh my gosh, my mom and dad are like real people
Yes.
with like real feelings and their own interest. And like you mentioned in like the sleepover scene with like Jane Lynch, like the mom is seen out clubbing and the daughter's like, oh my gosh,
Does dad know?
does dad know about this?
If only dad knew what she was doing.
In which obviously,
Yeah.
like, of course
And
he knew what his wife was doing.
Yeah.
And like, because she's a person who has interest and is going out with her friends because she has relationships outside of like, her family. And we see that too in Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging.
Yeah, with the mom. And so the mom and dad are like very lovey towards each other, and she just thinks it's absolutely disgusting. She's like, gross, like you shouldn't be kissing, like you're old. And then we see some like changes happen where the dad for his job has to move to New Zealand, and then she starts more like worrying about her parents' relationship and being like, well, they're not with each other anymore, like in person, like what is this going to mean for
Yes.
like my family? But then you see them like come back together, and like her parents are totally fine, but she was like starting to realize like, oh, like I should value that my parents like love each other and are like setting that example.
Yes.
So
And I thought that was like really cool to touch on because that's kind of like something that I think we also felt in that time of our lives. Like, realizing that like, oh my gosh, our parents are people.
yeah,
Like, I feel like that is around that age is the time you're like, oh my gosh, like they're not just like mom and dad. They're like literally like they're their own people, which sounds so ridiculous to say. But for so long, like their function in our life is like our caretakers and
Yeah.
like looking out for us and, just making sure we're like following by their rules. And then like as you're kind of coming into your own more, you start to realize that like, oh my gosh, they're their own people too.
yeah. And I think that kind of like goes along with like the selfishness of it all.
Yeah.
Like when you're young, you depend on your parents for so much. And then when you start to get older, like you get more like autonomy
Yeah.
and like you start making you can make decisions for yourself.
Maybe you're
and-
driving at that age, so you're starting to get out more on your own.
Mhm. And so like when you see your parents as humans, you're like, what?
What? Huh?
Like, no.
No. And
Like,
this like deep founded fear that like I guess all of us had if our parents were like still together at that age that they would get divorced because that was
'Cause
like
it's-
happening around us all
yeah,
the time and you're like,
exactly.
oh my gosh, it's gonna happen to mine too. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen here.
Yeah, like
and-
that fear of like, oh my goodness, what if that happens? Like,
And even in like sleepover, even though it was like for 2 seconds, I'm glad you pointed that out too. Like she had that same
yeah,
kind of fear too that oh
Yeah.
my gosh, my parents are gonna probably get divorced because dad doesn't know that mom clubs.
that mom's in the club. Mom
shaking her butt.
shaking her booty.
Shaking her booty up on the stage.
But it was also cute in that movie whenever Jane Lynch's character, the mom gets back home and he's like, oh, did you have fun at the club? And she was like, yeah, it was a great time. And he's like, good, we all need that every once in a while.
Yes!
It's just like, it's so wholesome.
I forgot about that too, even though we
And
just
he
watched it
was
last night. But
"Ah, that's so cute.
oh, I love that.
So the final kind of common thread that we saw between both of these movies is that concept of you're coming into your own, and that includes experimenting with different like beauty things or trying to keep up with what you feel like the standards are. Like, especially going into high school, you're like, oh, it's time for me to like reinvent myself. Like, this is where I
Yes.
become me.
Yes.
And so doing all of those things like trying self-tanner and having that go terribly
Both
wrong.
movies had self-tanner gone wrong moments.
Or or like dyeing your hair, or like trying out new like clothing styles,
Or
like
over plucking
the
or accidentally shaving.
eyebrows.
I had friends that accidentally shaved their eyebrows.
Yes, it happens more than you think. But just really like, I don't know, like you feel a sense of pressure to like figure out, who am I? Who will I be? And I feel like
For the
that
rest of my life.
theme, yeah, because high school defines the rest of your life, so you better figure it out now.
It's the first time they're coming into those pressures. It feels
Yeah,
like
the standards that like have to be met, or that you perceive need to be met, and like how impactful that can be on your like self-esteem if you feel like you're not living up to those standards,
the societal pressures, especially as a young woman.
Both movies, going back to the thongs, like make fun of the granny panties.
Yes, they both do.
So like that's like so funny because it's like that's such a silly thing. Like
who
also
cares?
no one should know what like you know what I mean. Like that shouldn't be common knowledge that everyone's like making fun of the type of underwear you wear, but like that was a thing. I think it's been really fun talking about kind of like the crossover of themes between these two movies, because when we like came up with this theme and picked those movies, we literally weren't thinking that like far. I mean, we were thinking that far ahead.
We planned this intentionally.
But I think it's just like very telling of like that age and that like the feelings that we were going through, to like see those like common threads of like, oh my goodness, yes, that's like what that experience and that time, like that age and
was really like at that time. Oh my gosh. I mean, obviously dramatized a little bit, but just a little bit. Because the guy that you've never talked to is probably not going to say your name at the high school homecoming dance.
That is facts. That is
also,
facts.
Why would he assume she's there when she's in?
No, because he found the scavenger hunt
that's right.
thing.
That's right. Okay, wait. Sorry.
But we also, really briefly, I want to go back to this. The reason he figured out who she was looking at his grade school yearbook. Like, what? That's weird.
He's like, I remember her from the bus.
Yeah, like what?
The line he said, she grew up nice.
Yeah, she grew up nice. Ah! I'm crying. That's so yucky. But anyways, all that being said, this was a fun adventure.
Oh, I am looking forward to talking more about the movies that shaped us. This is our first double feature. There was a lot to talk about here, but I think hopefully we summed up things nicely. And if you've seen these movies, I would love to know your thoughts, and would also love to know what movies shaped you growing up.
We'd love to hear from you guys.
Thank you again for watching. Again, if you enjoyed your time here, don't forget to leave us a rating and a review, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.